Hello and welcome to Our Conversations. I'm Andy Hodges and this is ZTM Prime. Now in August 2024, Zimbabwe will host the annual Sadc Heads of State Summit. Now so many things need to be discussed at that summit. We need to talk about regional integration, African Continental Free Trade Area, and much, much more. Now of course in Sadc there are 16 nations, and this is our first conversation with one of the ambassadors from the Sadc countries as our build-up towards the Sadc Summit in August. I now welcome to our conversations the ambassador to Zimbabwe from Tanzania, Ambassador Sirro. Ambassador, welcome, sir, to our conversation.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the embassy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure having you here.
The same to me.
In fact, what I like about our welcome here, sir, was the fact that it sort of epitomizes and shows the very strong relationship between Zimbabwe and Tanzania, not just from a governmental level, but also personally. I know of so many friends who are from Tanzania, who visited Tanzania. We can even go back to the liberation struggle when Tanzania was there helping us to get our independence. So tell me that, let's have an assessment, your assessment of the relationship as we stand between our two nations.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andre. Actually, the relationship is very, very strong. Because once you want to know to what extent we related, you talk about economic point of view. Once you talk about trade, we are doing a lot as far as trade is concerned. Most of the women here who are making trade, they normally go to Kariako to buy a lot of clothes, a lot of stuffs, and they bring them here and sell them here. But also we have some companies here from Tanzania who are doing a lot of business here. Therefore, as far as trade is concerned, we are really doing good. But the second thing about investment, there are some investors who are investing in Tanzania. There are some investors who are also investing in Zimbabwe. But as you said before, the issue of politics, you know, ZANU-PF and the CCM, they are brothers and sisters. Whenever there's any conference in Tanzania where they talk about politics, and the members from ZANU-PF goes and attends there. And whenever there is any conference here, they normally come here. Therefore, going to your question, our relationship is very strong, and we're working together. Even myself, being here, I feel very homely.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely, and you've made us feel at home as well, so really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Now, obviously, Tanzania and Zimbabwe have a role to play in fostering regional unity and stability and all the other issues that the Sadc countries have to get together. So how do you think that relationship that you've just described, that very strong relationship, contributes to the strength of Sadc in terms of regional unity and stability?
Thank you very much for your questions. Actually, whenever you talk about regional stability, purely in the principle you're talking about economics. Now, as far as our economy is concerned, as far as I said our trade is concerned, that the sectors are working together. The sectors on economy, the sectors on trade, the sectors on tourism, we work together and we share information together. Now, by so doing, by so sharing informations, automatically, then you build up strong relationship between the two countries, and automatically it goes to the region. If at all we have strong ties between the two countries, then automatically it goes around to the other nations too. Therefore, by sharing economic activities and by doing together economic activities, it means that you are bringing the countries together. And by so doing, then automatically you're bringing up your development of our economies to different countries within the continent.
I've also found as well that it's also good that the people at the citizens level know each other. And I think that's one thing that's very clear between Zimbabwe and Tanzanian citizens. Many Zimbabweans know a Tanzanian, or Tanzania knows a Zimbabwean. And I think that knowing each other also fosters that unity and stability and cooperation.
Obviously, that is very true. We know each other. And as I said before, once you go back to historical background of us, during the struggle for freedom here, you know what happened. There was a lot of logistics which was actually brought here. There were a lot of personnel who were brought here, right? There are some personnel here, some of the military personnel who went to Tanzania for training. Therefore, by so doing, there's a lot of familiarization between the two the people of the two nations.
Ambassador, let's focus on trade. You have mentioned it a lot, and I think it is very critical that we boost economic trade, not just between us and Tanzania, but also in SADC. But let's look at some of your numbers. We had large net trade with Tanzania, exports of foodstuffs, 3.45 million, vegetable products, 3.42 million, chemical, just over 500,000. During 2017, you had a large net trade with Zimbabwe, exports 6.51 million, 3.63 million. But what you can see there is that, and the numbers are showing that possibly trade may be declining from 2017 to now. So I suppose the question then is one of your roles, I'm sure, is to boost bilateral trade between our two countries. Are you concerned that the level of trade is dropping down, and do you have any strategies to try and boost that bilateral trade higher?
Yes, that's obvious, as I said before. And even yesterday I visited the Zim trade. I talked with them. They're the promoters. Therefore, there's something very important between the TAN trade and the Zim trade to work hard to make sure that they promote the businesses between our nations. That is paramount important. But the other thing, as I said before, for example, now we have this industrial week. It's very important now for the business people to capture this opportunity, to come in and see what is there. Because as I said before, because once you come, you will see a lot of things there. Because there's exhibitions of the products. That's very important. But also there's exhibitions, you'll see even the heritage. What does the country possess in terms of resources? That is very, very important. And actually expertise, because whenever you talk, you go and see the products, they will explain. Then you know to what extent do you have expertise in this country. But leave alone, also the policy is very important. You know the policy. As I told you before, our policy does not actually differ from the policy from here in Zim. It attracts customers, it attracts investors to come to invest. Therefore, I think that exhibition for us is very important.
Rather on a collaborative basis rather than an adversarial one, because that's one of the discussions being held, is that African countries are so much promoting investment in their own countries that we're competing with each other, and the only one that benefits is the investor, when really we should be working together to attract the investment into Africa, not into a specific country.
But why competing? Do we compete or we complement each other? Complementation is very important. Why do we fight? We are fighting when we are building the same house. It doesn't bring sense. For us, I think what is very important to share resources, to share information. And if at all very possible, we can help each other. We're in the same block. Why should we compete? For whose benefit, by the way? As I said before, we are building the same house, then we have to help each other.
Let's talk about the low-hanging fruit in terms of how we can stimulate trade. What are the flows? Like, for example, what do you think Tanzania can really export into Zimbabwe, which you think is relevant into us, and what do you believe you can expand the exports of our products into your nation?
Yeah, we see now, even for the time being, we have the challenge of hunger here. There's a lot of foodstuffs which are actually being brought to Zimbabwe. We have tried very much to convince some of the people in Tanzania, especially most of the farmers, to bring foodstuffs here. And they are doing a lot. A lot of maize is coming in, a lot of beans is coming in, a lot of rice is coming in. But also we are working hard to make sure that at least some of the manufactured products should be brought from here to Tanzania. For example, the yogurt, the milk yogurt. Very excellent, I can tell you, Andrew. This is the best yogurt I've never seen. Therefore, what is very important, as I talked to our friends in Zim Trade, I said, what is very important here? Information is power. Make sure that you send information before to Tanzanians to know that there's something very important here in Zim, which can be brought here to Tanzania. Therefore, I think we are lacking information.
So it's really about getting business to start talking, getting business delegations to go each side to actually see what's available, what they can do. Particularly later on, I will talk about the African Continental Free Trade Area, because that's exactly what the Africa is supposed to do. Ambassador, as you know, this is our conversations which is leading up to the 44th Ordinary Summit of Heads of State of SADC to be held in Zimbabwe in August. Let's look at that. I mean, the theme of the SADC conference is trade and industrialization. That's the major theme. What are your views from the Tanzanians' perspective about the leaders coming together? What are the issues they need to look at? I mean, I know drought is a big issue in SADC. What are the things they need to deal with? What are the plans you think leaders need to look at as SADC region going forward? What is your viewpoint?
Yeah, Andrew, I think the first thing is something to do with the defense and security. That is paramount important. You should talk about security, whether it is food security, whether whatever kind of security is very, very important. Because we cannot do anything if we're told the country is unsecured. That is one. But the second one, they should concentrate on the policies. Does the policy influences or provide a very conducive environment for investors? They should discuss that one also. But also, it's very important that they concentrate on the issue of heritage. What resources does the bloc has? What kind of resources? If each country will explain what kind of resources they have, because actually we have to depend on our own resources instead of just importing resources, exporting resources from the other country, from the falling out of the bloc. Therefore, to know the resources of our neighbor is paramount important. Those are some of the issues I think they should concentrate, but security is number one.
Especially food. I know that they've set up that Sadc ministerial meeting, a ministerial committee to look at the food situation in Sadc, so we can go as a bloc to ask for food assistance or get some help. Yes. But as well, I think because of the African Continental Free Trade Area, how key do you think the Sadc summit would be in terms of talking about, as we spoke about earlier, regional integration? Because Africa, again, as you said, this isn't about us operating as individual countries. So if you have a product and I have a product, I can bring it to you, we can make it there and export it. In other words, we have regional value chain. Do you think that's something that the Sadc leaders should also be focusing on?
I think they're going to focus that one. It's very important because for Africa Continental Free Trade Area, that is our baby. We have to embrace that one because we are going to reduce some of the barriers, unnecessary visas for we Africans. For we Sadc members, I think it has to do a lot of things to promote our industries, our investing.
When you look at things like the payment systems, the way that the international monetary system is against Africa, the charges that we have, the interest rates they charge African countries, putting us into debt. These are issues that African countries need to take charge of because we cannot continue to have our destiny controlled by foreign banks, foreign payment systems, foreign charges. What are your views?
No, it's okay. What you are saying is very true. Because it should come a time when we are going to have our own systems where we can help each other. But depending on the other system, it's the challenge for us. But what is another important thing is the trust. We have to trust each other. You know, the problem lies on neocolonialism, yeah? Because you have been lured by the British, you still think that the British will help you. Whenever they come to your country, the intention is not actually to bring development to your people. They are looking for the resources for their people, back to their people. Therefore, it's very important that you should concentrate what is very important for the benefit of your continent in totality. But the question of neocolonialism is another challenge.
One of the biggest issues, and I think it affects all Sadc countries, and I'm hoping that they discuss this, is infrastructure development, particularly when it comes to power, water resources, road networks, particularly in the Sadc area. They need to be upgraded. In fact, billions and billions, over $100 billion is required, I'm sure, in the next few years to achieve that. Is that infrastructure development key in terms of not just economically boosting Sadc, but also, of course, again, into integration and security?
Infrastructure is something very, very important. I'll take this opportunity to commend the good thing which is being done by His Excellency, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa, for putting concentration on the issue of infrastructure. But also my President, Her Excellency, Dr. Suluhu Hassan, has done a lot to influence the issue of infrastructure. How can you trade? How can you move from one place to the other if we're told the infrastructure is poor? How will it be possible for the farmers to bring their goods to the market if we're told the infrastructure is poor?
I just have to point to the Tazara Railway to give it an idea of how infrastructure changed. The Tazara Railway,
exactly.
How that changed the whole face of economics in Sadc when it was first built. It was incredible.
And that is very important. I would like to talk about that one. I tried to convince my capital to see the possibility of meeting with the capital here and discuss the issue of Tazara, so that they can extend the Tazara from Zambia to Zimbabwe to facilitate business, to facilitate investment. That is paramount important because that is also one of the infrastructure. Whenever you talk infrastructure, you talk about railways.
And it's the gateway to the north of Africa, going through your country. Kenya's there, and we can go to West Africa and so forth. Ambassador, the Tanzania Ports Authority, TPA office, was opened in Harare last year, and the idea was to assist in the importation of cars and other goods from Tanzanian port. Because one thing I found out was it appears that most of the car imports are coming through your ports in Tanzania and being driven down all the way down here. And I know that the TPA signed a memorandum of understanding between the two countries. An 8th Joint Permanent Commission was held July the 29th and 31st here in Harare in 2019. How do you see the TPA being a fulcrum or an institution that can really help to boost bilateral trade?
Yeah, Lily, it is a very good institution for boosting our trade between our nations. But I think what is very important, Mr. Andrew, here, we should go back to JPC. What were the considerations? It's very important that we have to activate the JPC. That is very important. By activating, it means that there are some considerations. We have to make sure those considerations are being followed by the two nations. That is the number one. But the second thing is the implementations of MOU. That is very important for us.
Yeah, because I always say that you can always sign things and discuss things, but it's the implementation that matters. The rest is just conversation.
Yes.
I mentioned the cars. I mean, look at the numbers, Ambassador. It's incredible. 45, between 2020 and 2023, 45,000 vehicles destined for Zimbabwe passed through the Dar es Salaam ports. In fact, your terminal there is the size of 73,000 square meters. I mean, so in a way, that's good business for you, I suppose, to a certain degree as well. I mean, and it also highlights this.
It actually is not only for Tanzania. It is for both of us.
For both of us, yes. But also as well, it highlights how critically, strategically important you having a port is. Because that's one of our issues, we're landlocked. But you having a port really does open up your trade and other African countries to use Tanzania as a conduit to export.
Sure. Actually, our port is our port. Tanzanian port is your port also.
Thank you. I'll take you up on that.
You have to use that port because it's your baby.
Yes,
we're in the same block. Yeah. That is your port. You have to make use of it. That's very, very important.
Let's talk about your own country now, looking at your own numbers. You've been quite successful. You've doubled your foreign direct investment in 2023 compared to the same period in 2022. That's in Q2. So your direct foreign investment is going up. You're on your FDI between July and September 23, $1.05 billion US against $500,000 US in the previous year. That's according to your own Tanzania Investment Center. What are you doing that is making Tanzania attractive? I mean, $1 billion is no joke. What are you doing as Tanzania to make your country attractive to investors?
It's a question of policy. If at all the policy is conducive, it allows investment, then automatically there's no challenge. But as far as your question is concerned, there was a review of the Business Act. That was number one, so that it can allow the investors to bring in a lot of commodities.
Without all that paperwork and bureaucracy.
Yes, to avoid those bureaucracy. But the second thing about the issue was also buying some of the equipments, modern equipments, which facilitates exactly, which actually will help to unload goods very easily. Because once you have something which is not actually not modern, then it takes hours to take out of the car from the port. But having the modern equipment, it becomes very easy to take the cars out of the port. But the second one, to get revenue, to get more revenue, because the more the offloading of the ports, the vehicles from the port, the more they're gaining. Therefore, number one is the policy revision, but number two, buying of equipment, but number three, management itself. My president is very good governance. My president is very serious because that is our baby. It is a place where we're getting a lot of revenue. Thank you.
That also, that brings to mind the sense that one thing that's very critical for foreign investors is, as you just said, confidence. Confidence in that your government will keep the same policies. They won't policy flip-flop. They're committed to putting in an investor-friendly environment. And I think that, according to the reports I've read, Tanzania seems to have achieved that confidence level from foreign investors and foreign countries. Do you think that there's any lessons that we could draw from that? I know it's hard to compare different countries. It's hard to. But in the sense of how can we start ensuring people saying, Zimbabwe is actually, it's okay to go and invest there. We're not scared about it. Whereas Tanzania, they'll come. Zimbabwe, they may not. Or what do you think?
Maybe let me try to supplement my answer, but also the stability of the country. You see, Tanzania is very stable always. We have never went any kind of conflict, any kind of fightings. Therefore, the investors know that the environment is conducive for them for making investment. But coming to your question, I try to lead your policy here, industrial policy. It doesn't differ from my policy. Let me take this juncture also to appreciate a good job which is done by His Excellency, Dr. Idi Mnangagwa. There is a lot of development of infrastructure here. He's serious on that note.
I'm serious.
He's very serious on that note. But something to be learned from Tanzania, I don't see. Maybe we can share just experiences and the expertise.
I suppose in a way we learn from each other.
Exactly.
That's the way to put it, I suppose.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, we're talking about Tanzania and Zimbabwe, but we also need to put this in, go out a bit and put it into a bigger picture, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area. And the impression that we're getting from the citizens, not from government, from citizens, is they don't really understand it. Business is scared of it. They don't really understand how it will benefit them. And they don't understand how regional value chains, how we can work together. Even some countries in Africa we've never heard of. If I said to someone, do you want to do business in Togo? I'm sure there's not a single company I know who's done business in Togo, yet now it will be open. How do you think we can trickle down the importance of African Continental Free Trade Area from the leaders and everyone who set up this agreement now down to the business that must actually implement it and make it work? I think there's a bit of a gap there. What is your view about that?
What do you think are the gaps?
Well, the gap, I think, is that I think people don't understand African importance. They think, for example, that it means that a lot of cheaper goods will come and flood our market, putting them out of business. They're obviously, some of them are not exporting, so they don't know the opportunities available now to export. In other words, it's markets they've never been in before. So it's like a general, maybe it's a communication problem. Maybe it's a knowledge problem. But your views on Africa and what do you think it will do to our continent?
Yeah, I think what is very important, as far as your question is concerned, is something to do with information. Information is power, as I said before. And we have, let's say, something like Zim Trade here. It has a lot of things to educate the people, to promote things. Because whenever the people understand, because we are doing things for the benefit of the society society should know what are the challenges and what are the benefits. Therefore, without giving enough knowledge to the citizens, they will not understand, as we're saying. Something has to trickle down to the users. Now, to trickle down to the users, we leaders, we are responsible to sensitize the people so that they can know what are the challenges and what are the opportunities. That is very, very important.
There's no doubt, 1.4 billion people. I mean, this is the largest trading bloc in the world, and I think it's now down to Africa to make it so. And not to be trapped, as you said, in that neo-colonial thing where we have this thing, but we're still exporting our raw materials to outside of Africa. I mean, do you think the SADC leaders, that should be, of course, I think it will be one of the major focus on their agenda, African Continental Free Trade?
Of course. As I said before, that is our baby. Then the people should know that one. How can you take care of your baby if you don't know how your baby needs? What does your baby need? Therefore, the people, because that the trade itself, African Continental Free Trade Area, is not only for the leaders, it is for the people. Therefore, the people they should know how it operates. What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? Why should we embrace that one? That is paramount important. I
was actually recently at the UNECA Council of Ministers Conference held in Victoria Falls, and I met some colleagues from DRC, and they were working in the Treasury Ministry. And I remember, these are senior officials, and I remember one of them talking to me and saying he's never ever been to Zimbabwe. He never considered it. So when you think that senior officials in a government haven't been to some of the countries, okay, how then can we hope that those countries can improve and increase regional trade when that understanding of each other is not there as we talk now?
But it's not necessary that you should appear physiognomically to that country, but sharing of information through the social media. I might not be in Zim, but I might get a lot of things from Zim. Therefore, I failed to comment on his observations because I might not be here, but through the social media. But you can get a lot of information, what is being done in Zim.
But you get into a mindset then where you then start only focusing on your traditional markets, not opening up to new markets, because you say, I don't know them, so let me leave it alone and always trade with these people. And I think we need to change that mindset. We need to be opening up our minds to trade with countries that we probably never did before. At least we can explore.
That's very, very important. Now I was wondering if such a senior official was saying that I've never went to Zim, then I know nothing about Zim. Being a reader, lacking reader. Can you imagine about that?
No. They say they know Zimbabwe, but I think some of their executives don't. Ambassador, I want to just ask you something which is interesting. Well, two issues. Number one,
yes,
the first,
please.
Of course, is about your. Well, it's interesting. You have a lady president, of course, one of the few African nations with a woman president, and I suppose that speaks to your gender policies. I suppose to a certain degree.
Yes.
Talk to us about that and the importance of lifting up the girl child, how you deal with the women's issues in Tanzania, because it's one of the big issues that's affecting us in Zimbabwe as well, that uplifting of women, giving them opportunities, access to finance and so forth. But as I said, your president is a lady, so I suppose I'm hoping you've got somewhere there. Maybe just talk to me a little bit about how in Tanzania the attitude towards gender progresses.
What is very important is the issue of equality. We are all human beings. Our constitution is very clear about that thing, that there is no double standard as far as women and men are concerned. We are all equal. And given that our mother law explained obviously about that one, therefore empowering the women is also one of our agenda, because they are part and parcel of the society. Then we have to empower them. And once we empower them, then you give them the opportunity even to be some of the big leaders, for example, my president, right? It's not necessary that always that the country should be led by the men. And I see how progressively the country has achieved.
In fact, the numbers bear you out. I mean, more education, more equality can bump your GDP up as high as 9% if women are involved. That is how important women can be economically. Now, that also ties into education, because I had a look at your education system. You again, or your presidents, and not just the current one, but previous presidents, have put a lot of effort and money into boosting your education system, putting schools into rural areas and so forth. Tell us about that and the successes or maybe challenges you faced.
Yeah, actually, my government is putting a lot of money to education sector. But maybe the challenge, I see it, is not only in my country, but the challenge in Africa. As we are saying here, education here is a challenge. Because we should go far. Apart from 3, we should go far to 5, 0 education. The issue of innovations is very important. But the issue of industrialization is paramount important too. Because we have a lot of doctors, we have a lot of professors. But does their education help the society where they came from? Does their education solve the problems of their society? But also I would like to commend the president here. He has insisted the issue of innovations. And you have innovation hubs in all the universities. That's not something very simple. It's something we should consider that one as we Africans. That education is not only to be employed. You have to do something more than being employed by the government. Innovations, you can start up your things, you can start up your enterprises, a small enterprise, medium enterprises, you can employ some other people. Therefore, as far as your question is concerned, we still have the challenge of we Africans, education, about innovation and industrializations.
I mean, because, at the end of the day, if you can educate your population, give them good health care, give them an environment where they can thrive and be entrepreneurs, or even be employed. And when you look at the Sadc countries, it appears as if we pretty much have the similar issues, don't we? We need to improve infrastructure. We need to put money into education, into health. We need to obviously boost our trade. So this is why I think having the Sadc meeting really emphasizes how Sadc can become a very powerful bloc within Africa, within the African Union itself even, and with the African Union even better, and we can actually get we can have the boot on our foot rather than our traders.
Obviously, that's very true. That's very true. Innovations and industrializations will actually take us where we are to go to the highest stage.
Now, I just got two more questions for you, Ambassador. The second one, of course, is one issue I hope the SADC heads of states will discuss is the very, very critical issue of climate change and sustainable development goals, which I know you're very familiar with. This issue of fighting climate change has got to be a continental fight. Well, what are your views, and what is Tanzania doing to try and attain SDGs or also combat climate change?
Yeah, actually, we're doing a lot because that is, we know there's a global change. But what is very important, the first thing is just the policy. And make sure that we have the laws which actually talks about the climate change. And we have the security organs who are taking the charge on that one. But also the issue of sensitizing the people, showing them the problems of climate change. And I can assure you, once you go to a penal code, there are serious issues, there is serious penalty if at all you commit offenses concerning with the climate change.
The environmental laws that you have. You've got very serious environmental laws, but they're also enforced. I think that's
exactly. We enforce the law. We enforce the law. But sensitizing of the people is very important. Educating the people by showing some of the problem caused by the climate change.
So I just, again, SADC conference is coming up. I've been reading a lot of foreign press talking about raising various issues, saying that various countries within SADC are fighting, and the countries are coming out and saying, no, we're not. Is there harmony within SADC as far as Tanzania is concerned?
It is the challenge is there. Because once you're in a group, and normally they meet, they normally have the meetings, they discuss some of the challenges. But as per your question, they are one thing.
SADC is one.
Yeah,
and going forward, SADC will go forward.
That's why you see, even if there's insecurity, for example, in DRC, in Mozambique, in DRC, you know what happened. Yeah? Our leaders sit together and they say, no, we have to eliminate this challenge. And our police, our military are there to secure the situation.
So
therefore, we are one. Regardless of the challenges.
Ambassador Sirro, many thanks for talking to me and talking to ZTM Prime. It's been most appreciated.
Thank you, and welcome to the embassy.
Thank you so much.
This is your home place. You don't need to make an appointment to come to the embassy. Anytime, feel free to come to the embassy.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I think that epitomizes exactly the relationship that we have as Zimbabwe and Tanzania. But more importantly, it epitomizes the relationship that SADC member nations have. And I think we'll see that in August at the 44th Heads of State Summit to be held here in Harare, Zimbabwe. Lots of things for the SADC leaders to discuss. You're watching Our Conversations. This is our first episode of our conversation with SADC ambassadors leading up to the SADC Summit in August. We've been talking to the ambassador from Tanzania to Zimbabwe, Ambassador Sirro, giving us a rundown on exactly the relationship between our two countries and exactly what his thoughts are, his country's thoughts are on SADC and what's going forward, and also talking about what's happening in his country and how we can boost relations between our two nations. I'm Andy Hodges. Look out for our next episode as we continue our conversations with SADC ambassadors. Goodbye, and please, you all be safe.